I spend so much time thinking about researching and visiting historic sites, whether they're original or sort of reconstructed, rebuilt historic sites. Geography sites, like mountains or rivers from the time period. It's, though, difficult when we go visit a historic site because the sites are rarely in the context, in the environment in which they were 200 or 300 years ago. We'll go visit a historic site and it'll be maybe in the middle of a city or in the middle of a farm field, when originally it wasn't like that. It might have been originally in a farm field, or it might have been in a forest, but we can't understand the environment or the location because the environment isn't like what it was 200 or 300 years ago. So when we get a chance to visit and experience a site, a location, an environment, the way it was 200 or 300 years ago, well, that is a learning experience. It can be very difficult for us to understand the forests, the wilderness of the 18th century because very little of it exists now. We have forests, and a lot of them in the eastern part of the United States, but the vast majority of them are not the same kind of forests that they would have had in the 18th century. Right now, I'm in this little spot in the Allegheny National Forest. This little, couple 100-acre, might be 500-acre patch of old-growth forest, where we can get a chance to walk in an environment that is like what it was 200 or 300 years ago, maybe even older than that. We've got trees here that are, this one's probably one of the younger ones here, just 150 years old or so. There's much older trees back here in the woods. Beautiful, giant trees. And here in the United States, you just do not get a chance to see that. And that this kind of site, even though it's not billed as a historic site, it's a historic site. When we get a chance to visit these things, we really should. It's amazing to go through this environment because it's much different than the kinds of forests that I'm used to. I live basically in a little forest, but all the trees are actually very young, 25, 30 years old. They were just planted that long ago. And the forest that surrounds this little pocket of a forest, it's 100 years old or so. Beautiful. But it's completely different. The trees, the species are different. The trees here are hemlock and white pine and beech, giant trees. The trees that surround this in the 100-year-old forest, they're black cherry and they're oak and they're maples. Totally different. Really, this is one of those wonderful places where we get a chance, just a glimpse of what the environment was like 200 years ago, 300 years ago. Wow. If you get a chance to find a little piece of old growth forest just to visit, get a glimpse, get a feel for what it was like, it'll give you an idea, especially if you do any studying or have interest in the wilderness areas of North America 200 and 300 years ago. Get a chance, do it, go out into the woods if you can find a spot like this. So beautiful. I want to thank you for all your wonderful support. And thanks for watching today.